Thank the member. Recognize the member from Nelson-Creston.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. And my colleague from Port Coquitlam is absolutely correct. I have a lot to say about Bill 24, Honourable Speaker, and that's because a good chunk of my constituency in Nelson-Creston is ALR land. And this bill has a direct consequence on the lives of the people that I represent, on their well-being, on their way of life, on how they make their living. And so this particular bill is very important to the people in Nelson-Creston and to all of the Kootenays. And what they have said unequivocally, Honourable Speaker, is that they want to save the ALR and they want to get rid of Bill 24 because this bill does absolutely nothing to protect their way of life. It does absolutely nothing to protect their economic sector. It does absolutely nothing to protect the way in which they make their living. They earn their money. They contribute to our communities. This bill, in fact, hinders all of that and puts their lives in jeopardy, and therefore they don't support it, and as their representative, I don't support it. So I want to talk first about what this bill does, Honourable Speaker. And if we look at it, so it changes the ALR and the way in which it is managed. It does two very significant things. And one of the things that it does is it creates two zones of agricultural land reserve. Historically, the ALR, the Agricultural Land Reserve, was one zone, and it was managed province-wide by the Agricultural Land Commission. Now, under Bill 24, the ALR is put into two zones. One zone will be managed the way it pretty much has been since 1974, when the ALR first came into being. And in that Zone 1, Honourable Speaker, as you know, as I'm sure you've heard from many other MLAs who have spoken before me, Zone 1 is consisting of the island, and it's consisting, Zone 1 is consisting of the Island Panel region, the Okanagan Panel region, and the South Coast Panel region. And Zone 2 is everywhere else. And so, for people who might be just tuning in and wondering, what is this panel region business about? Well, that's actually the second change that's being made in this bill, which is amending the Agricultural Land Commission Act. What it does is it devolves decision-making power over the land to regional panels. And these regional panels, there's 6 of them. There's the Interior Regional Panel, the Island Panel, the Kootenay Panel, the North Panel, the Okanagan Panel, and the South Coast Panel region. And each one of these panels are going to be making decisions, and they're going to be looking at these particular things. Under Section 4.3 of this bill, what we read is that when exercising a power under this Act, a relation to land located in Zone 2, the Commission must consider all of the following. A, the purposes of the Commission set out in Section 6. B, economic, cultural, and social values. C, regional and community planning objectives. And D, other prescribed considerations. The place where those other prescribed considerations come from, Honourable Speaker, is the Minister. So the Minister of the day may decide that something must be considered by these regional panels. For example, that perhaps exploratory research for mining has to be considered, or developing recreational vehicles, some RV parks needs to be considered. Whatever the Minister of the day has decided in his or her wisdom that needs to be considered by these panels, they have to consider it. And it's in no descending or ascending order. These are all the things that they must be considered equally as of today. And what this means ultimately is that regional panels who are appointed by the minister from people that live within amongst that region have to consider alternate uses. They must consider alternate uses to the land other than agriculture, Honourable Speaker. Now, this inherently, at its core, changes the very purpose of what the ALR is: agricultural land reserve. It is land that is supposed to be reserved for agricultural purposes. Instead, this bill is changing that very purpose and saying we can do a whole host of other activities on this land, and it's going to be decided by a group of people who have been appointed by the minister of the day. So all of this has my constituents extremely concerned, Honourable Speaker. They're concerned, the things that I've heard about is that they're concerned that the regional panels will not be free from political manipulation, free from political interference, and that their very purpose, the very people that will be appointed will be partisan in nature and will have their own agenda to drive, rather than an independent approach that we have seen for the last 40 years with the Agricultural Land Commission. They particularly are concerned, as I mentioned, that this will negatively impact their way of life. And I'll give you an example later on, Honourable Speaker, as I talk about some of the people that live in my riding. But for now, I want to make it clear that the people of Nelson-Creston, the people in the Kootenays, do not trust that this type of legislation is as benign as the government claims it to be. Rather, they believe that this is a backdoor approach to degrading the ALR and ultimately putting into jeopardy the 5% of land that we have set aside for agricultural use. And that's not a lot of land. When we look at all that is here in British Columbia, only 5%. That means 95% of our land base is not being used within the ALR. Some of it might be being used for agriculture, but not very much of that 95%. Honourable Speaker, 5% of our land is being used for agriculture, to grow our own food, to feed ourselves, to ensure our food security. And without that, we are putting not only people's lives in jeopardy, but we're putting our broader provincial economy in jeopardy. This is an important economic sector in our province. But when we think about climate change and the long-term impacts of climate change, and we see droughts occurring right now in California and the increases to food prices as a result, we are very concerned that when we are putting 5% of our land base, the 5% of our land base that is set aside for agriculture, that is set aside for our food security, when we put that into jeopardy, we put our own well-being into jeopardy. We put our ability to feed ourselves into jeopardy. To make sure that food is at a reasonable, affordable cost, we put that into jeopardy. And I know, Honourable Speaker, earlier today I was talking about a single mom and her daughter and the struggles that they have to put food on the table and how they have to rely on food banks because food costs are going up and up and up. It's a conversation in every coffee shop in my riding, how food costs are going up. I have no doubt it's a conversation in the coffee shops of the other 84 MLAs here in their ridings. Food prices are going up, and when people are struggling to make ends meet, and they're relying on food banks, and we're creating a bill that will systematically, in a very short time frame, I have no doubt, in a very short time frame of a few years, have a negative impact on our local food prices, we're doing absolutely nothing for people living in poverty. We're doing absolutely nothing for people all across this province, regardless of their income. So, Mr. Speaker, one of the things that is particularly disturbing to people in my area is that the Kootenays have been put into Zone 2, which is so bizarre because the Creston Valley is Class 1 agricultural land. Now, the Minister for Core Review and the MLA for Kootenay East has commented very, I have no idea what he was thinking when he said this. Perhaps he doesn't know what he was thinking when he said this either, Honourable Speaker. But he commented saying that the only thing that you can get in the Kootenays, if you want to eat a 100-mile diet, is hay. Honourable Speaker, you should have heard the outcry in Creston. You can grow everything in Creston, Honourable Speaker, much more than hay. There's somebody right now who's experimenting with citrus fruit in his greenhouse. Could you imagine? Lemons and limes, grown here in BC. And right now, just on the news this morning, I heard about the lime shortage and how restaurants all across the province are now paying $200 a case for limes because of a drought in South America and in the southern part of North America. They're paying $200 a case for limes when they used to pay $30 a case for limes. And that's a huge jump, and that's going right back to the consumer. So the Creston Valley, able to grow everything, including limes, as it turns out, is certainly should not be considered as Zone 2, which is somehow second-class citizen to Zone 1. Creston Valley is absolutely prime ALR land. It's beautiful agricultural land, and it's no surprise. It's really no surprise when you take into consideration how they were selected as Class 1. And recently, Fred Harper and Ray DeMarchi wrote an article for the Times Colonist. And who are they? Well, they were both people who were involved in the original mapping of the ALR as biologists and as soil and looking at the soil and the quality of the soil. And what they found in the Kootenays and what they found in other places where it's been designated ALR is that it's incredibly rich soil. And this is what they say in their article. A specific soil's described profile is used to determine the agricultural capability of a given unit of land. Because the scientifically based description of a soil profile is admissible in a court of law as evidence of an area's agricultural value, soil capability was chosen as the basis for the reserve boundaries. Now that contradicts some of the things we've heard from the opposite side, where they say that large chunks of the ALR, well, you can't grow anything on them anyway, and all you can grow is hay, and they're rocky territory, and it's not ideal farm use, and so on. The science would suggest otherwise, Honourable Speaker. And so, back in the 70s, Fred Harper and Ray DeMarchi remind us that the province had a well-studied and understood basis for determining where the best soils and therefore the best farmlands existed throughout the province. Creston Valley is one of those best places for farmland, without a doubt, Honourable Speaker. And in the Creston Valley, I've mentioned there's much more than hay. Cherry season is coming up, Honourable Speaker. If you get the opportunity, please do come down to the Creston Valley and get yourself a beautiful bowl of cherries. You'll have none like it anywhere else in the world. Recently, I was just there picking up beautiful Creston Valley asparagus from Sutcliffe's Farms. Best asparagus, bar none, that you'll ever have. The carrots out of the Canyon Valley, excellent. I could go on and on. Potatoes, the dairy, everything that's grown in Creston. And, you know, some people might say I'm biased, but I really don't think I am. I'd like to think I come to this objectively as an eater, that the food out of the Creston Valley is by far some of the best food in BC, if not the best food in BC. And why is that, Honourable Speaker? It's because of the soil, it's because of the water, it's because of the land base, and it's because it's been protected under ALR. And so now I brag about this to my colleagues all the time about how great the Creston Valley is. And so whenever I get an opportunity, I invite them, just as I did you, I invite them to come down to the Creston Valley and see for themselves. See what all the fuss is about. Don't just take my word for it. Let me feed you some food from the Creston Valley. And so this April, my colleague from Coquitlam-Millardville came for a visit, and we did a tour of some of the farms. And one of the farms that we went to, the first farm that we went to, Mo and Mikey's farm, there we learned about the transferring of knowledge from elder farmers to younger farmers. And of course, the access to land is a big deal for young farmers. And what the young farmers were telling us about Bill 24 is a real fear that they have that land prices will skyrocket as greater demand pressure is put on ALR land to do things other than grow agriculture. And this is exactly why we have ALR in the first place. It's to protect our food security, protect our farmland, and to protect farmers into future generations so that they can afford to buy land. It's already very difficult, so why would we want to make it even more difficult? Why would we want to do that? And that's something that young farmers, Laura and Nigel, asked me. Why would we want to make it more difficult for them to access land so that they can do something that they love doing, which is farming? Right now, and I know that the Minister for Core Review has said that this is all about letting older farmers stay on their land longer. However, when you talk to some of the older farmers in the Kootenays, in my riding, particularly where most of them are, what you find out is that they want their land to continue on for farming use, and they want to be given an opportunity to transfer their experience and transfer their expertise onto younger farmers, and to find affordable ways to do that. And one of the ways that is possible, and only possible if the land is protected, is exactly what Mo and Mikey have done with Laura and Nigel. Laura and Nigel are sharing land, and they're sharing Mo and Mickey's land, and Mo and Mikey are now able to expand their farm to the full capacity of their land base because they have two younger people who are there to help them with that. And in the process, the young people are making an investment in their knowledge base, in their experience, in their expertise, by learning from others who have gone before them. Eventually, the hope is that Laura and Nigel will be able to buy that land from Mo and Mikey. So these types of connections are happening already. And there's places and there's incubators that we can create to grow that. But Bill 24 doesn't allow that to happen. Bill 24 doesn't stimulate that type of transfer from generation to generation. The long-term economic viability of the family farm. It doesn't do that at all. In fact, it hinders that. It makes that nearly impossible to do because the almighty dollar will say, you can get more money, and the almighty dollar would say, you can get more money by building an RV park on your land. And so, when someone goes to apply to get their land taken out of ALR for an RV park, according to this new bill, that's exactly what the new regional panel will have to okay. And according to the farmers in my community, according to Mo and Mikey, to Laura and Nigel, that's not going to be good for them. And that's not going to be good for the region. So from there, we heard from Laura and Nigel, we heard from Mo and Mikey, and from there we went on. And of course, as we got in the car to drive around the beautiful Creston Valley, Selena was blown away at the incredible farmland that she saw. Pardon me, thank you very much for reminding me, Honourable Speaker, the member from Coquitlam-Millardville pointed out just how beautiful it was and how much she loved the scenery, but how much she could see in the vista just out of the car window, all that was growing in the Creston Valley. So then our next stop, we came to Kootenay Meadows Farm, which is a value-added farm, And they are doing value added from feed, from the Minister of Core Review's favorite product, hay, right to bottling milk, Honourable Speaker. They've got the whole picture. They are doing it all on Kootenay Meadows Farm. But they're not doing it all on one chunk of land. They actually have 27 landlords, Honourable Speaker, 27 landlords. All those 27 landlords have to ensure that agriculture is being produced on their land because it's ALR. If they no longer need to do that because they can take their land out of ALR and put on an RV park or have it opened up to some exploration for mining and natural gas or whatever it is, or put on a chalet or whatever, invest in the tourism industry. If they do that, then it puts their entire production at risk. They need those 27 pieces of land. They need those 27 landlords to work with so that their business is viable. Their job-producing business is viable. Taking that land out of the ALR would mean they don't have an income, that the people that rely on them don't have an income. It would mean that people in Nelson don't have milk at their local Kootenay co-op or cheese. Mr. Speaker, I will apologize. I only brought cheese from Kootenay Meadows Farm for Madam Speaker. I will be sure to do the same for you next time. It's delicious. It's amazing. It's the best cheese you'll ever have because it's grown in the Creston Valley. But they won't be able to do that if this bill goes through. This bill will hurt their family farm. They are 3 generations of farmers on that land, and this will hurt them. The third farm we went to taught us a lot about producing for the farmers market, and that was Jessica Piscinin. And she's somebody I go to every single week at the farmers market and buy all my fresh fruits and vegetables coming from the Creston Valley, whether she's in Nelson or in Creston. And what this bill would mean for her and all her neighbors that give her food to sell at the farmers market is that she no longer has a business as well. So what I'm hearing from my constituents, Honourable Speaker, is that this bill, at its core of trying to destroy the ALR, is anti-business. It's anti-farm business. Honourable Speaker, under the guise of trying to promote other industries, it's throwing this industry under the bus. And that has dire consequences for people in my riding, Honourable Speaker, and they have been absolutely clear they do not want this bill to go through. They do not want to see the ALR put in jeopardy. They do not want government making these massive land use decisions without any consultation to people across British Columbia. How do you do that, actually, Honourable Speaker? How do you do that? How do you go about making such a massive land use decision that affects every single corner of this province and not have a consultation process? It is enraging my constituents, Honourable Speaker. They deserve better than this. British Columbians all across this province deserve better. They deserve to be part of a discussion, part of a conversation that will then decide what we will do with our land base, with our agricultural land base, with the very land base that determines our provincial food security, that is integral to a province-wide economic sector that benefits us all. And Mr. Speaker, that's why I feel that it's absolutely necessary at this point to move a motion that we refer this, and I'll read my motion, that Bill number 24 not be read a second time now, but the subject matter be referred to the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services, and further, that the committee be empowered to invite witnesses to appear before it to assist in its deliberations.
proposes an amendment, and the amendment is in order. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. It's at this time that I would like to speak to that amendment. And what I'm proposing to do here for those who may be watching at home is I'm asking that that consultation process, the consultation process that I've heard from my constituents, that I know that British Columbians all across this province would have expected from such a major land use decision, I'm proposing that that consultation process take place. So the reason why I'm suggesting that we refer this bill to the Finance Committee is because we need that consultation. So why is the Finance Committee the right place, the right body in which to actually take on this consultation process? Now, I've talked about my bias of the Creston Valley and all its good food there because of my own personal experience. So maybe it's a similar situation with the Finance Committee. I sat for 2 years on the Finance Committee, Honourable Speaker, and I know that it does exceptional work. It does exceptional work in engaging British Columbians all across the province in a consultation process that it does on the budget. So it's able to do that. It already has the function of being able to go out and talk to British Columbians all around the province. It has the experience and the expertise. It has the know-how. It has the ability. And they'll be doing it this fall, Honourable Speaker. So perhaps the Finance Committee could make this a part of their fall tour as they go around and consult with people on the budget. I mean, at the 11th hour, the Minister for Core Review last fall suggested that that's exactly what people should do if they want to be heard on this issue, on the issue of possible changes to the ALR, is that they should go and talk to the Finance Committee. So my guess is that the Minister for Core Review already thinks that the Finance Committee is a good body to be conducting some type of consultation process, a much needed consultation process for the ALR. So I'm hoping that the Minister of Agriculture and the rest of Cabinet will understand the value that this type of consultation process will have and why the Finance Committee is the ideal body of this legislature to go out and do that consultation process. And as I mentioned, the Finance Committee has the expertise, absolutely, and they're the ones who ought to be doing this, and that they would be able to take in all the feedback from the public and make sure that the public is heard and provide recommendations back to this House about what should be done with ALR, because one of the things I've heard from the farmers in my community, Honourable Speaker, is that there are some things that could be fixed with the ALR. Now, Bill 24 doesn't offer a single one of those things that they'd like to see, but there are some things that could be done. And that really piqued my interest, Honourable Speaker, because what that said to me was that they had some ideas. And as people who farm, as people who actually do the work every single day, they had something to offer us in this assembly. They had something to tell us, something to show us that could improve the economic sector of agriculture. And we ought to hear from them. And we ought to hear from them in a meaningful way, in a meaningful process that is transparent, that we hear what people are saying, we know what people are saying, especially with the Finance Committee where that would be transcribed onto Hansard, rather than just trusting that the minister is reading letters. That's not a consultation process, and the government knows that, because if the government only thought that reading letters was sufficient consultation, they would never have done what they did with the Water Act modernization process. That process was a 5-year process, and I remember when it was first started that the farmers in my community were concerned. They weren't too sure what the government wanted to do, and I could say to them, here's the meeting that's happening in our community. Go to it. Make sure your voice is heard. Say what you have to say. Make sure that the government is hearing what this means for you, what these ideas might mean for you, some changes that you see that need to be made. And they did that. And they were heard, and changes were made. And it came back to this House, and it was something that we could support, because we know that time was taken to make a major decision on water, again, something that affects us all, just like food, and that decision was made. So the government knows that consultation is more than just letters, but they haven't taken the opportunity to go out and do that meaningful consultation. So that's why I moved my motion, Honourable Speaker, is to do that consultation. Now, of course, and they know that they did not do sufficient consultation, and they know that, Honourable Speaker, because the Minister of Core Review, when confronted with this issue, said, mea culpa, mea culpa. I'm guilty. We did not put together a proper consultation process. And we know that reading letters, by the thousands even, is not a transparent, proper, meaningful consultation process, and that's exactly what's needed, and that's exactly what the Finance Committee can do. And that's exactly what local governments all around the province have requested, Honourable Speaker. The City of Richmond, on April 28th, passed a motion asking the province to consult with the public and local governments before Bill 24 becomes law. Peace River Regional District sent a letter to the Minister requesting that the provincial proposal to separate the agricultural land reserve into two significantly different zones be withdrawn from the Legislative Assembly. Clearly, they have something to say. They want to be heard. They wrote a letter as the Minister has asked them to, but I have no doubt that if we had a face-to-face consultation process with the Finance Committee, the City of Richmond would be there to make a presentation and to put their citizens' voices on the record officially, Mr. Speaker. The village of Nakusp in the riding of Kootenay West, this is what they had to say on November 25th when they passed a motion to support preservation of farmland, and they called for what, Honourable Speaker? A consultation period. I will continue. The Islands Trust, on December 20th, 2013, they wrote a letter to the Minister of Agriculture at that time and to the Minister of Core Review supporting the preservation of the ALR and an independent ALC, the Agricultural Land Commission, in demanding consultation. And they did this following a council resolution. The Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, at their annual general meeting, April 11th to 13th of this year, they passed a resolution sponsored by the City of Victoria, requesting that the provincial government respect the integrity of the province-wide agricultural land reserve and support its management by an independent and adequately funded agricultural land commission. I have no doubt that the AVICC would attend a Finance Committee meeting where consultation was taking place on Bill 24 and the ALR. I have no doubt that they would show up, make a presentation, and make sure that the citizens they represent and their voices were on the official record. The Southern Interior Local Government Association, Honourable Speaker, also passed resolutions at their May AGM just a few weeks ago. And what did they say? Increase resources to the Agricultural Land Commission in accordance with recommendation number 2 and report number 5, September 2010, audit of the Agricultural Land Commission, to more effectively preserve agricultural land and encourage farming. And further, that the provincial government maintain the Agricultural Land Commission as an independent administrative tribunal. Again, a group representing local governments and all the citizens that local governments represent, the same citizens that we represent in this House, saying they don't agree with Bill 24. I have no doubt that they would show up at a consultation process and make sure their citizens' voices were put on the official record. And Mr. Speaker, my very own Association of Local Governments, the Association of Kootenay and Boundary Local Governments, at their AGM, passed a resolution, and this is what it said, requesting that the provincial government undertake a consultation with the public, local governments, the Union of BC Municipalities, and affected parties on the proposed two-zone approach to the ALR, and that Bill 24 not be brought into force until such consultation is complete. That's exactly what my motion is about, Honourable Speaker. That's exactly what it's about. The people in my riding want to see consultation. The people throughout the entire Kootenay region, the same region that is represented by the Minister for Core Review, want to see consultation. And I know he knows that because he was there at that annual general meeting of the AKBLG where they passed this resolution. It's been absolutely clear, Honourable Speaker, that the people of BC want consultation. And they've made that clear through their local governments, but they've also made it clear through the organizations in which they are involved. The BC Agricultural Council, which represents over 14,000 BC farmers and ranchers, and close to 30 farm sector associations from all regions of the province, what did they want? Hands down, they want consultation. I heard that in the meetings I had with them the other day when I went to go to their reception for all MLAs on Monday evening. What did I say? Farmer after farmer representing their agricultural sector. What did they, each one of them say? Consultation. They were affronted that the BC Agricultural Council was not formally consulted. They felt blindsided by Bill 24. That's not governing. That's not governing with the public. That's not working with the public on land use decisions, Honourable Speaker. That's making something up based on a conversation with a few friends in a Cranbrook pub. That's what that is, Honourable Speaker. And ramming it down the throats of British Columbians. That is not governing, Honourable Speaker. That's working for a few friends. That's not acceptable. That is not acceptable, according to British Columbians. That shouldn't be acceptable to this government, and yet they do it all the same. Well, I'll tell you this, Honourable Speaker, at the very least, the people of the Creston Valley will not be putting up with it. The BC Food System Network, they have also called on this government for a full analysis of Bill 24 and for consultation. The Certified Organic Association of BC, they have asked for consultation, and they weren't even asked about this bill. BC Fruit Growers Association, I sat down in my community office with the president, and what did he say? Consultation, Honourable Speaker. The National Farmers Union, 6-page letter to the Premier detailing their concerns with Bill 24. And again, I have no doubt that if we gave the Finance Committee the opportunity to go around this province and talk to British Columbians, that the National Farmers Union would show up and make sure that their members' voices were on the record, Honourable Speaker. The Kootenay Local Agricultural Society, I have received, Honourable Speaker, in my office, hundreds and hundreds of letters. On Friday alone, I got another letter, another email into my inbox every 3 minutes on Friday. Petitions, hundreds of names on petitions, postcards to the Premier. People in my riding are begging for this government to slow it down, to not ram these types of land use decisions down the throats of British Columbians, but to actually stop, take some time, and to do the good consultation process we know they are capable of doing because we saw it with the Water Act modernization. So this is what the Kootenay Local Agricultural Society had to say to me in their letter. Contrary to the Minister of Core Review's latest comments, there are virtually no organic farmers in the Kootenays who support Bill 24. Certainly none of the class, 65 members or 18 farmers certified under Kootenay Mountain Grown label support it. Contrary to the Minister's claims, it appears that the Agricultural Land Commission in the Kootenays is generally functioning well. According to Integrity BC, 72.3% of the applications to the ALC from 2006 to 2012 in the Kootenays were approved, with some conditions, while only 27.7% were rejected outright. So clearly, any desire to take land out of the ALC for alternate uses is being considered. And it's actually, people are being allowed to do what they want to do. But it's being considered with an independent body that is not politically tied to the Minister for Core Review or to another minister or to another member of this House, but is independent and is there to work on the basis of that independence. They go on to say that given the changes to the Agricultural Land Reserve and ALC will affect every British Columbia, class urges you to postpone Bill 24's second reading until after a multi-year public consultation process similar to the one undertaken to update the Water Act. The public should have the opportunity to comment on any proposed legislation, including enabling legislation. Any changes to the ALC and ALR should increase farmland protection and the province's food security, especially in the face of climate change. Those are the types of letters I'm hearing. From the Creston Valley Agricultural Society, very much the same thing. Honourable Speaker, Randy Meyer, the President, writes, I write to your office again to continue to voice our opposition to Bill 24. We held another public meeting last night, and it was well attended by a wide cross-section of farmers from our diverse agricultural valley, from beef, dairy, and field crop growers to smaller lot, fruit, vegetable, and market gardeners. Absolutely no one voiced any support for this divisive bill. We are encouraged by your apparent desire to hear from farmers from around this province, and at the same time are disappointed by the Minister of Core Review's closed-minded attitude on this very important matter. People want to see this consultation process take place, Honourable Speaker. They want to have their voices heard. They want to be able to tell this government what the agricultural land means to them. I have another letter here from the President of the Boundary Organic Producers Association in Grand Forks. And he writes that he was pleased to meet with his MLA, the member for Boundary Similkameen, and her assistant on April 17th. They thought, and I quote, "It is my belief that the concerns expressed at that meeting did not fall on deaf ears. I was assured that our MLA supports our concerns addressed below and will do everything in her power to help the farmers in her riding." They go on to say, "Myself and members therefore urge you to scrap Bill 24 and to work with farmers to develop legislation and policies that will promote locally and sustainably produced foods." I wonder how the Boundary Organic Producers Association are going to feel if their MLA does not stand in favor of my motion to refer this to the Finance Committee for consultation, to do that consultation work, especially when they've asked her and they left that meeting feeling confident, like they were heard. And I know that I am aware that the Minister for Core Review has brought up that some members in the Kootenays are supportive of Bill 24. And of course, we are in a democracy. You never get 100% of the population agreeing 100% of the time. That's why we have a democracy, where majority rules. And the majority is clear, Your Honourable Speaker. They can't be more clear that they don't like Bill 24 and they want to have their say in a process, a consultation process for the agricultural land. Honourable Speaker, I just have so many letters here. I have to go through the stacks of paper. Let me share with you a letter from Melissa Flint. She's from Creston, and she writes, "I'm opposed to Bill 24, the Agricultural Land Commission Amendment Act. Bill 24 does not in any way support agriculture in British Columbia. The Agricultural Land Commission and the Agricultural Land Reserve were put into place to protect and grow the agriculture sector in BC in face of development, which may alter the land to make it unsuitable for farming, as well as raise prices and make land unaffordable to farmers. And I've talked about that, Honourable Speaker. She goes on, by changing the zoning that makes Zone 2 vulnerable to development, you endanger farmer livelihoods, rural economies, and food security in British Columbia. Climate change is a real and present factor. She goes on, Honourable Speaker, to say, I call on the provincial government to conduct a public consultation process with the ALC and those affected by its decisions, farmers, ranchers, and citizens of BC. And she's by far not alone, Honourable Speaker. As I mentioned, I have a considerable number of letters that have been coming into my office, people saying that, that they don't want to see this bill go forward. And they should have the right to say that. They should have the right to say that. They should have the right to say, you know what? I don't like this idea of regional panels, and I don't like this idea of prioritizing campgrounds over food production. I don't like this idea of prioritizing exploratory research or mining over agriculture. We need to be doing both, and there's a place for mining and there's a place for agriculture, and we've identified the place for agriculture. It's the Agriculture Land Reserve. They deserve a place to say that, and that's exactly what a consultation process would do with the Finance Committee. And I know that I've read several letters from people from Creston, but let me tell you, I'm getting a lot of letters from people in Nelson too, Honourable Speaker, a town founded on mining. But they care deeply about their neighbours and friends in the Creston Valley, about their neighbours and friends in the Salmo Valley, in the Lardo Valley, north of Kootenay Lake, all these places that have ALR, producing amazing food, as I've bragged about already. So this is what I hear from Dan Rood, who's the principal at Crawford Bay Elementary Secondary School. Food sustainability and sovereignty is a growing concern and is resulting in a growing number of grassroots initiatives in our community. And I'm just going to interject in reading his letter there, because it really is amazing what's going on around food security in the Nelson-Creston riding and all throughout the Kootenays. The 100-mile diet has taken hold. We cherish our local food, and we don't want to lose the opportunity to be eating healthy local food and reducing our impact on climate change. And for those who think it can't be done, and I've mentioned to the Minister of Core Review on numerous occasions how it can be, and that we grow so much in the Creston Valley, but if you think it can't be done on a large scale, I'd like to remind or let people know that when I got married a couple of summers ago, we hosted our wedding feast with a 100-mile diet. It was a 100-mile wedding feast. Everything that we fed our 150 guests came from the Kootenays, except the cheese. There was one cheese, the goat cheese did not come from the Kootenays. I have to admit it, I apologize, it came from Kelowna. The beautiful riding of the Minister of Agriculture, actually. We got the goat cheese from his riding. It's fantastic. I'll give him the name of it. He should get it. And it's exactly, oh no, it was yours. And it was exactly, it's exactly why I hope he's hearing today how important it is to go to consultation process, because eating local and eating the food that we grow here in BC is increasingly important to British Columbians, as it is for people in Nelson. And so the principal that I mentioned, Dan Rood from Crawford Bay, continues on. We are wanting to become a more self-reliant and localized in food production and distribution. And we are wanting to teach the values related to growing our own food and knowing where our food comes from to our children and youth. I am not in favor of Bill 24. Now, I have no doubt that Mr. Rood would like to be able to send his letter not just to his MLA, not just to the Minister of Agriculture, but be able to include it into a formal process that is then compiled officially, transparently, and heard by members of this House. John Bierbauer from Queens Bay which is just about 45 minutes north of Nelson. Beautiful views over Kootenay Lake. And this is what he has to say. I'm opposed to the proposed alterations to the structure and management of the Agricultural Land Reserve in Bill 24. As a small farmer in the Kootenays for the last 30 years, I highly value the ALR in its present configuration. The relaxed management regime proposed for the planned Area 2 will prepare the way for greater subdivision and exclusion of currently or potentially productive farmland. And he raises a very important point, Honourable Speaker, a point that's been brought up by my colleagues. And it's something that is happening in the Creston Valley on a daily basis. Land gets subdivided. Somebody from often Alberta comes and buys what they consider a beautiful house on a beautiful acreage. And they're right, it is a beautiful house on a beautiful acreage, but it's also surrounded by farmland. What often happens is that they're there not even a month before they start to complain about the smells from the dairy farm, the smells from the chicken farm, the smells from spraying manure, and so on, the noises from the tractors at early times of the day, the noises from the cows, the noises from the chickens, the pigs running around. They start to complain about that, Honourable Speaker. But they have a voice too, and I have no doubt that they would like to bring their voice to a consultation process. And I have no doubt that the farmers who have to hear these complaints on a regular basis would like to bring the points that they have to a consultation process on how we can address the needs of the ALR and how we can particularly address those conflicting needs. And that Bill 24 would actually increase that conflict rather than reduce it. I have no doubt that they have something to say. And here's another person from Crawford Bay. Jesse King. I'm writing to express my concern about Bill 24. I am opposed to the passage of this bill as I feel the ALR currently helps protect farmland, farming jobs, healthy and sustainable food, and allows us to not be 100% dependent on Californian food. She points out, which is likely not to be around for long given their overuse of aquifers and droughts. We all eat multiple times a day, and thus we need our farmland in BC to be protected. The process by which the government's trying to shove this bill through the legislature without public consultation is absolutely disgusting, she says. I would like to teach my students that we live in a democracy, but this process has me questioning the strength of that democracy. I think we owe it to Jesse King and his students that we will show them that we value democracy, we value the process of governing, and that we understand that that means bringing the public involved, especially into an issue that prior to the election, the government made no mention. They never said that they would make any changes to the ALR. I believe they said quite the opposite. Something like what happened in 2009 with the HST. Well, the public's feeling blindsided again, Honourable Speaker. The public is feeling blindsided again. And they want to have their say. Last time, they had their say by forcing a referendum onto this government and winning that referendum. That's how they had to have their say. Why make it so difficult on them again? Why do that, Honourable Speaker? I think here we have an opportunity. I hope the government side of the House will see that opportunity and support the motion to go to a consultation process, a robust, meaningful, transparent public consultation process with the Finance Committee. Here's another reason why we need a consultation process, Honourable Speaker. And I hear it from the Regional District of Central Kootenay Area E Director. She wrote to me to let me know that 72% of the people who answered a land use survey in her area believe agricultural land should be for agricultural purposes. To me, that's a good indication that people do care about this issue and they want to be consulted, that they do have something to say. And it's not what the government thinks, and it's not what the government is presently doing. Honourable Speaker, as I said, I have received countless letters. Here I received a letter from Ashley Dawson in Kamloops. And she's writing, "Please don't pass Bill 24. The future of our province and its people depend on this decision. I love my locally grown food. I want to know where and who grows my food. Passing this bill could take that privilege away, and that's not okay with me." She's certainly a voter in Kamloops, Honourable Speaker, and I hope that her MLAs are listening to her today and saying, you know what, Ashley has something to say, and she should be able to say it, and she should be able to say it in a formal way, not just through a letter, but in a formal way, in a way that the Finance Committee will be sitting down and listening to her and listening to what she has to say about how passionate she is about the Agricultural Land Reserve. Another group that's written me, Honourable Speaker, is the Blewett Conservation Society. They're near Nelson, and as I mentioned, the people in Nelson have been writing extensively to me on this issue, asking for consultation, asking to be heard, saying that they don't support Bill 24 in its current form whatsoever. And the president or the director of the Blewett Conservation Society writes that they are opposed to Bill 24, that land in the ALR should, now and in the future, be suitable for food production. They're concerned that Bill 24 is going to absolutely reduce the ability of the ALR to produce food for our province. And they're particularly galled by the fact that the Creston Valley Class 1 agriculture land has been designated for Zone 2 at the whim. At the whim, not because of any analysis on the value of the land, not because of any analysis of its economic viability as agricultural land for the entire region. No, not because of those reasons, but because, Honourable Speaker, the only thing that people in my area can surmise, the reason why they've been tossed out as second-class citizens with second-class farmland when they don't, is because of a conversation that was perhaps had by the Minister of Core Review with a few friends in a pub in Cranbrook. That's how this legislation seems to have come about. And that's not okay. That legislation, any type of legislation like this, that is having massive changes on our land use, on the very land that we produce food on, should have been done with a multi-year, province-wide consultation process. A process that included the BC Agricultural Council, a process that included the Association of Kootenay Boundary Local Governments, a process that included the Southern Interior Local Governments Association, a process that included the Lower Mainland local governments, a process that included, I see my colleagues from the Lower Mainland particularly want that consultation to include Lower Mainland local governments, a process that would have included Vancouver Island local governments from the north. Every single local government association has been clear that they are not happy about being left out of this massive decision of land in their regions. The BC Agricultural Council has been absolutely clear that they are not happy about this, about being left out of this important decision-making process. I've listed off several other organizations. The organic farmers, unhappy. The National Farmers Union, unhappy. Way to not make friends, right? This is a great way to not make friends. I mean, the Liberal government, here they are, going around, making massive decisions, not including anybody. I highly doubt that anybody is feeling pretty good about them right now. Right? Not only did they not include all of these organizations, these representative organizations that are actively involved in land management, are actively involved in the sector that is impacted by this bill, not only did they not include them, they didn't include eaters. Honourable Speaker, they didn't include eaters. which is all of us. And that's exactly why we need to have a consultation process. That's exactly why we need to be able to go out to the public, hear what they have to say, make sure what they have to say has been put on the record. Because all due respect to the Minister of Agriculture, and I have no doubt that he's reading all of those letters, the thousands and thousands and thousands of letters he's receiving. I have no doubt that that's exactly what he's doing at this minute. That being said, Honourable Speaker, when policy is made in this way, it does not breed confidence amongst the public. They are not left feeling confident that the government is truly taking into consideration what might be in those letters. And in fact, there's no process to ensure that there's some accountability, that the government is listening to what people have to say. We just have to trust. But the trust has been broken. It's been broken repeatedly, many different places, many different policies. It's broken with the HST, as I mentioned. But it's particularly broken right now with Bill 24. So this is an opportunity. To refer this to the Finance Committee is an opportunity for this government to start building that trust. Again, Honourable Speaker, to start building that trust with the public, to say, yes, it's not just your letters that I'm reading, but I want to hear you in a formal way, in a meaningful way. Presenting to the Finance Committee, putting those voices on record, having some public transparency so that members of the BC Agricultural Council can go back and look and say, that's exactly what I said. It's on Hansard. Rather than finding out that they're apparently in support of a bill that they've never actually said that they were in support of, which is exactly what happened with Bill 24. That trust that this government will hear and accurately represent what they had to say has been broken. And that trust needs to be rebuilt. That's not a partisan issue. That's just a common sense issue. That's just a good government issue. So if members across the way were interested in doing that, building that public trust, good governance, rather than photo ops and slogans, they would take this opportunity, Honourable Speaker. They would take this opportunity and begin a consultation process by supporting this motion and voting yes, getting to yes, Honourable Speaker. They like to say that a lot over there, getting to yes, getting to yes. Here's a really great opportunity for them to get to yes. Get to yes to the public. Get to yes to public consultation. Get to yes to democracy. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what this issue is all about. It's about democracy. It's about the public. It's not just about, hey, we won an election a year ago and now we can do whatever we want. That's not democracy, Honourable Speaker. That's hubris. That's narcissism. That's what that is, Honourable Speaker. And the public deserves something more than that. They deserve to be heard. They deserve to sit in front of the Finance Committee and say what they have to say on the ALR and to say, we don't want Bill 24. We want to save the ALR. They have every right as members of this province, as citizens of this country, to go in front of the Finance Committee and say, kill Bill 24. Thank you very much.